I just fell asleep. And now no one's answering. Where are the people? It can't be alive. What the hell are you?
I have to ask the same thing.
With a start, Heel-Talk awoke. Silence pressed down on him. Thick, wrong. The kind of silence that came only after something terrible had happened. For a moment, he didn't understand. Then pain returned, a dull throb spreading through every part of his body, pulsing behind his eyes and echoing in his skull. He blinked. Light stabbed at him, white and blinding. A smell hit him next, burning metal, scorched plastic, something sharp and chemical. He coughed, the motion sending a bolt of agony down his chest. The plane must have crashed. He had been asleep. That was all he remembered. He'd chosen to rest in the aircraft's reinforced diplomatic cabin while it crossed what the humans called the Atlantic, an ocean larger than anything on Mendra. He was en route from a successful summit with the Western Continental leaders, heading for his next engagement in the Central Territories. Everything had been going smoothly. The humans had been respectful, surprisingly so. For all the stories his people told of Earth's dangers, its wildlife, instability, climate, and warlike history, not once had he felt unsafe. If anything, he'd been impressed. No off-worlder had died on Earth, not a single one. There were constant updates from the liaison offices and security bureaus. Earth is stable, they had said. Earth is cooperating. And it was true. The human cities, for all their chaos, had treated him like a visiting monarch. He'd met officials, scientists, even the famed peace dogs, their domesticated predators eager to wag tails and sniff his clothing. No, he hadn't felt fear. Not then. But now? Now the wreckage of that confidence was all around him. The air shimmered with heat. Pieces of the plane's hull, some as large as entire rooms, lay scattered in twisted, unrecognizable forms. Wires dangled like shredded vines. Plastics had melted into warped globs or shattered into sharp flakes under the impact. Fibrous insulation hung from exposed beams like dead skin. He could see bent steel support structures, folded in unnatural ways, and near one shattered engine, fire still licked upward, smoke billowing into the too blue sky. The world was bright, too bright. The sun overhead blazed like a furnace. His vision swam. With effort, he lifted his body. His limbs felt wrong, rubbery, distant. All four of his flat, dexterous arms trembled as they pushed against the ground. It wasn't ground exactly. It was wreckage. A floor panel, maybe, half melted and resting at an angle. He had to shift his weight carefully to not slip on it. He checked himself first. Instinct, training. All four hands tapped along his torso, his limbs, his head. Scratches, minor bruising. The back of his skull throbbed where he must have hit it. Possibly a concussion, a few bloodless scrapes along his upper left side, but nothing broken, no punctures. He was alive. His upper heart fluttered in disbelief. He scanned his surroundings again, forcing his cone-shaped eyes to adjust. That wasn't easy. Earth's sun, so harsh, so unfiltered, refused to let his vision stabilize. Without his protective goggles, which must have been lost during the crash, his eyes were overwhelmed. Everything further than a few meters turned into silhouettes. The landscape was a haze of contrast and blinding light, with only the nearby details remaining sharp. He could just make out where they'd come down. A grassy plateau, mostly flat, hugging the side of a steep mountain. The plateau itself was littered with fragments of the aircraft, as if it had been torn apart in the sky and hurled down piece by piece. Beyond the edge of the slope, a thick forest stretched downward, dense and dark, with trees so tall and narrow they looked like jagged spears. The other direction, uphill, was no comfort either. Rock faces stretched upward at impossible angles, some of them sheer and bare, towering like the bones of the planet itself. He felt small here, vulnerable. No one else was in sight. His heart sank. Surely someone had noticed the plane's disappearance by now. Earth's airspace was heavily monitored. Civilian and diplomatic flights were tracked obsessively. Rescue operations would be deployed. They had to be. But when? Could he afford to wait? He swallowed against the dryness in his throat. His body wanted to sit down, to rest, to hope. But a thought jabbed at his mind, sharp and unwelcome. What if no one else had survived? He had, against the odds. But what about the crew, the security detail, the other human diplomats? He had to know. Cautiously, he took a step forward. His legs wobbled. The ground was uneven. Metal fragments jutted out, and some of them were still hot. He picked his way across the debris, scanning for signs of movement, a voice, a cry, anything. Still nothing. He stopped beside a chunk of the plane's outer hull, half buried in the dirt. Looking at it, bent, blistered, blackened, it occurred to him just how absurd it was that he'd survived at all. Most beings didn't walk away from something like this. Most didn't even get to crawl. He had heard of miracles like this, people surviving falls from orbit, crashes into oceans, explosions in zero-G. Always rare, always impossible, until they weren't. He had never imagined he'd be one of them, but surviving wasn't enough now. Survival came with responsibility, especially here. He couldn't call himself a diplomat if he let others die around him without lifting a finger. He owed it to the humans, if not for their help during his stay, then simply for the fact that they'd been kind. If they were alive somewhere in this wreck, he would find them. He clenched his fists, small, clumsy gestures compared to human hands, but full of resolve, and turned toward the broken remains of the aircraft. Whatever had happened, whatever came next, he wasn't done yet. He stood in the wreckage, trying to make sense of the world. It was too bright, too hot, too still. The wind didn't blow, but heat waves shimmered across the plateau, distorting shapes in the distance like they were half submerged in water. He shifted his stance on the uneven ground, sharp pieces of plastic crunching under his feet. His cone-shaped eyes strained against the sunlight. They weren't made for this. Without his goggles, Everything past a few meters was cloaked in a blinding haze, as if the sun itself was sitting just above the surface, pressing down on the earth. The closest wreckage was clear: broken fuselage, shattered safety seats, bits of luggage torn open and scattered. But beyond that, everything became silhouettes, jagged, motionless, silent. He hated the silence most of all. His people didn't value noise the way humans did, but even they knew that silence after an impact meant danger. On Mendra, silence following a collision often meant the systems had failed, or that everyone else was already dead. He rubbed the back of his aching head, willing the pain to fade so he could think. His ears still rang from the crash, a low, buzzing hum, like static in his own brain, rattled through him every time he moved. He looked around again, trying to find direction. The slope of the plateau dropped off steeply not far from where he stood. Further down, the forest waited, dense, dark, foreboding. Uphill, the mountain rose in stark defiance, its grass giving way quickly to bare rock, a sheer climb into the clouds. He shuddered at the sight of it. It felt dead, ancient, and empty. There was no life up there, nothing that could help him. The forest, on the other hand, teemed with it. Life, danger, maybe both. And that was the problem. Hilt Talk was not built for this. He was a diplomat, not a survivor. Not a soldier, not an explorer. He wasn't trained for wilderness navigation or emergency response. He could give a speech in 6 different languages. He could recite the cultural history of the Southern Earth Coalition and explain the trade negotiations between human blocks. But here, now, he was just a soft, 4-armed envoy standing alone in the wreckage of a once safe flight. He remembered the dogs, Earth's friendly predators. So strange, those creatures, sharp teeth and powerful limbs, yet so playful, affectionate. The humans had trained them well. He'd even grown fond of one, a golden-furred female that had licked his elbow and refused to leave his side. He'd laughed then. Now he remembered her teeth, big enough to break his fingers if she'd tried. He remembered the strength of her paws when she'd jumped up against him. She'd only wanted attention, but she could have broken him without meaning to, and those were the tame ones. The stories of Earth's wild animals, beasts with claws designed to pierce, grip, and rip flesh, rushed back into his mind. Predators with no need for tools, whose own bodies were their weapons. He'd never been afraid of those stories before. They felt distant. Now they were too close. The forest loomed below, and even though it looked peaceful in the haze, he couldn't help but imagine what watched from the shadows. Number going down into the trees would be foolish. He took a few steps forward, boots crunching on broken metal, and found himself standing near what remained of the central wing of the plane. Fires had eaten away at it, leaving only fragments, and whatever was inside had been consumed. Still, no sign of anyone else. He ran his hands over his body again, as if rechecking his survival could explain it. How was he alive and no one else? The humans were sturdier than he was, thicker bones, more redundant organs, strong reflexes. It didn't make sense that he'd be the only one standing. Surely others had made it too, maybe even more intact than he was. Maybe they were already out there, searching through the wreckage. Maybe. His more reasonable mind, however, reminded him of how random crashes were. Millimeters could decide who lived and who didn't. A chair bolted at the wrong angle, a bag dislodged, a seatbelt snapped. Anything could change everything. Just because the humans were strong didn't mean they'd survived, but even if they were gone, if none of them had made it, he had to look. He couldn't justify just standing here. Even if he found nothing, he had to try. He turned toward the largest chunk of wreckage still intact, the one furthest down the slope. It had cracked open along one side, exposing rows of seats and scorched panels. He took a deep breath and began to move toward it. His legs were stiff, his balance still unsteady. He had to lean on nearby debris as he went. Then he heard it. A sound, faint at first, so faint he almost mistook it for a trick of his ears. The grass. Moving. He froze. There it was again. A soft rustling, long and low, grass blades whispering against something heavy. But not footsteps. There was no rhythm, no two-legged pattern, no uneven thump of a limping survivor. It was something else. Continuous, smooth, like something being dragged or crawling. He turned slowly, ears straining against the ringing that still refused to fade. It was coming from the direction of the forest. Panic slid down his spine. That wasn't a human. Whatever it was, it moved like it belonged here, like the plateau was its home, not his. He squinted into the light, trying to see through the haze. Nothing. Just shapes. Blurred silhouettes. Still, he felt it. Deep in his gut. Something was out there, and it was coming toward him. His body understood what his mind could not. His feet shifted backwards. One slow step, then another. His fingers curled into anxious fists. Something was coming, and he couldn't see it. He couldn't hear it properly, but he knew. It had seen him. He didn't run at first, not because he wasn't afraid, but because his legs didn't seem to understand what was happening. They held him there, locked in place, waiting for his mind to make sense of it all. Waiting for a command that wasn't coming. The sound in the grass grew louder, an unbroken rustling, a long whisper of movement without pause. Not footsteps, not human, not any earth creature he'd been told about. His heartbeats quickened. The ringing in his ears flared as he turned his head, trying to pinpoint the source, but it was everywhere and nowhere at once. The haze from the sunlight blurred everything past a few meters into vague shapes. He scanned the edge of the slope where the plateau dropped into the forest, but it was just shadows and brightness, nothing in between. Still, the sound moved toward him. He took a step back. Just one. But that was enough for his body to take over. Whatever part of his brain was supposed to weigh decisions had gone quiet. This was older, instinctual. His legs bent and launched him away from the sound, the rest of his aching body dragging behind them. He ran without thinking, without a plan, just away. Scrap and debris flew past him as he sprinted across the wreckage. He veered between chunks of twisted metal, scorched chairs, blackened panels, slipping on a melted floorboard and barely catching himself. His ears throbbed with pressure. His vision pulsed with the pounding of his hearts. He didn't stop until his legs forced him to, slamming to a halt and sending him tumbling onto the grass. He hit the ground hard, forearms scraping across sharp stones. He rolled onto his back, gasping, and turned toward the slope again. Still nothing. Nothing visible. But he could feel it. He could feel it. like the way his species could feel gravity shifts on a ship's hull before an alert ever sounded. It was coming, crawling, sliding, and it was wrong. He tried to stand, but something kept him low, kept him crawling backward instead, like his own body knew upright was too exposed. He backed up until his spine met the base of a boulder, and he stayed there, frozen. Then, through the glare and haze, he saw it. A shape. No, an absence of shape. Something massive, blurred and pulsating. A vague form that didn't have symmetry, didn't have logic. It moved like liquid with intent, pushing itself across the grass in slow, determined motions. Its surface was flesh, but not flesh, shifting layers of pale and bruised colors that folded into themselves and then back out again. From its sides protruded tendrils, arms maybe, if arms had mouths. Each appendage ended in a wide, fleshy maw, flapping open and closed without rhythm, filled with teeth that didn't match. Teeth of different sizes and shapes, some jagged, some curved, all wrong. Too many, placed in ways that made no sense. There were no eyes, no head, no clear beginning or end, just mass crawling forward. He wanted to scream, but the breath got stuck in his throat. He ducked behind a piece of hull, pressing himself into the shadows, trying to calm his trembling limbs. But it was no use. He felt it getting closer. The thing didn't hesitate. It didn't search or scout. It knew. He shifted, trying to edge further behind the wreckage, but every time he moved, he could feel it adjusting course. He didn't know how. It didn't have eyes, it didn't make noise, but somehow it always came. Panic seized him. He scrambled from one piece of cover to the next, diving between metal panels, ducking behind luggage compartments, but it was always there, always tracking. He couldn't see it clearly now, but he could hear the grass parting. The sound of it slithering never stopped, and no matter how many times he ducked or turned or ran in short bursts, it followed. Then he made a mistake. A sharp edge caught his leg as he leapt over a broken wing strut, and he fell again, harder this time. His knees buckled and refused to lift him. He was on the ground, breathing hard, lungs burning, every limb trembling. He tried to crawl, but his arms shook with the effort. He looked back, and now there were two. The second was just like the first, and it was closer, much closer. The grass barely rustled beneath them, but he could hear it now. He could feel it now. His vision blurred again. Not from the sun this time, but from the stress, from the ringing in his skull, from his body screaming for oxygen and answers. They were flanking him, herding him. He tried to turn uphill toward the cliff, but the terrain was steep and rocky. Too steep. His legs didn't want to work. He crawled. He crawled because he had no other choice. The sharp stone cut his skin. He didn't care. The monsters came behind him, sliding, hunting without sound or mercy. The higher he climbed, the worse it got. The air thinned, the sun beat down harder, and still the only sounds were the ringing in his ears and the sickening whisper of something dragging itself over the ground behind him. Then he reached a wall of stone, a sheer cliff face. No more path, no more up, just rock. He turned around. He could see them now. Even through the haze, they were close enough. Their mouths snapped at the air like animals starved for centuries. They pulsed and twitched, tethered to the mass behind them by lengths of flesh that shouldn't support movement but somehow did. They were almost gleeful in their urgency. No sound, just hunger. He collapsed, body giving out. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide, and no one coming. He imagined what it would feel like to be caught, to be pulled into one of those mouths, to have those mismatched teeth tear into his soft flesh. He could almost feel them already, nipping at the edges of his consciousness. He didn't scream. He couldn't. One of the mouths snapped at the air just above his leg, inches away. Then something moved overhead. A shadow. Quick, solid. Crack. The lead mouth recoiled violently as a rock slammed into the fleshy protrusion that connected it to the body. It twisted unnaturally, collapsing backward in a flailing motion. Another rock followed, smaller, faster. It struck the second mouth squarely, stunning it. More stones rained down. The beasts staggered, their mouths retracting, their bodies flinching. And then, through the ringing, came voices. Shouts. Human voices. Figures were descending from the cliffs above, moving fast, climbing like it was nothing. Heel Talk blinked, stunned. Humans. Some of them leapt from the cliffs and ran straight toward the monsters, yelling, waving, jumping, doing anything to draw attention. It worked. The creatures twisted toward them, jaws snapping. But the humans were nimble, quick. They darted in and out, always just out of reach. Behind them, others on the cliff hurled stones, aiming with uncanny precision. Pain slowed the creatures, confused them, and then hands grabbed Heel Talk by the shoulders. Strong hands, human hands. "We've got you!" someone shouted. "You're safe!" They hauled him to his feet, though his legs barely supported him, and dragged him up the slope, away from the wreck, away from the monsters. Still breathless, still stunned, he whispered, "You made it. You're alive." "Barely," one of them replied, still breathless. "Sorry we left you. We thought you were gone." He nodded, unable to find words. As they pulled him higher, the wind changed. The haze cleared for a moment. And below, where the beasts still writhed and flailed, he saw them more clearly. And he knew these things weren't from Earth. They ran, not because they had a plan, not because they knew where safety was. They ran because something ancient, something deeper than reason told them to. The humans, so bold, so fast, dragged Heel Talk with them, their boots pounding the broken slope, hands gripping his arms like lifelines. Behind them, the ground moved, not the two creatures from before. Those were gone now, retreated or crushed under the stones the humans hurled. This was something else. Bigger. Worse. Heel Talk didn't need to see it to know it was there. He felt it in the ground, in his legs, in his chest. The world had shifted when it came. The haze broke around its presence. It pushed the air, displaced everything. He forced his head back. There, far below, rising from the forest like a living storm, came the monster. It towered over the trees. No, it was a forest, a writhing spiral of flesh and mouths and limbs without form. Tubes of meat intertwined in endless loops, and from every end, another of those gaping maws snapped at the air. Some were the size of a human, others the size of escape pods. The entire mass moved with an unnatural grace, a slow spiraling crawl that shrugged off gravity and reason alike. And it was fast, so much faster than something its size should be. Heel Talk barely had time to breathe before the thing had cleared the tree line and was ascending the plateau, devouring distance with every slithering turn. The humans didn't look back anymore. They couldn't afford to. One stumble, one pause, and it would be over. He knew he was slowing them down. They did too. "Leave me," he shouted, his voice hoarse and broken. "You'll die because of me." "No way, Jose," one of them grunted, refusing to let go. "We're not leaving anyone behind." "This thing can't have you," the other added. Her face was streaked with dirt, her teeth clenched with effort. They tried to carry him faster, but the mountain steepened. The ground turned to loose gravel and sharp stone. They slipped. They struggled. The snapping mouths were getting louder again. Healed Talk could feel them behind him, taste the death on the wind. Then something new moved. The light dimmed, not like a cloud passing overhead. This was a darkness that swallowed light, pulled it inward. A shadow with weight. It flew. A black shape, winged and sleek, cut through the sky above them. Not a ship, not a bird, a being. It descended like a blade, slashing through the haze, dragging silence in its wake. And it landed, right in front of them. The humans skidded to a halt. They recognized it. They knew it. They smiled. Relief. Joy. One of them even whispered, "Help is here." But Healed Talk saw the weapon. The curved, gleaming edge of something impossibly sharp, held in both hands, a blade that hummed with stillness. "Wait," he started, but it was too late. With one movement, clean and without hesitation, the blade sliced through the man beside him. Gone. No scream. No blood. Just gone. The woman vanished a second later, cleaved from the world like an afterthought. Healed Talk fell again, unsupported, his mouth open but soundless. The dark being raised its weapon again. He braced for the end, but the strike never came. Instead, a hand gripped him by the collar and lifted. He dangled like a rag doll, his limbs flailing as the being took flight once more, dragging him through the air with terrifying speed. The haze parted wherever it passed. Below them, the humans, what was left of them, cheered for their executioner. Healed Talk couldn't speak, couldn't think. The being landed again, gentler this time, dropping him near the wreckage of the plane. The fires still burned, the smoke still rose. Then it walked toward the ruined hull. "Come," it said without turning. Healed Talk followed. There was no fight left in him. The being stopped beside a twisted section of the fuselage, its fingers brushing against the metal. "This is it," it said. "This is where your body lies." He blinked. "What?" "You died here," it said plainly. "When the plane crashed. That is your body on the other side." Healed Talk stared at the wreckage. His knees buckled. "Number Y. I survived." "You did not." He sank to the ground, shaking. "Then what is this? What is happening to me?" "This place," the being said, "is what lies beyond, but only if you die here, on Earth." The silence that followed was unbearable. So, the humans, they're dead too? "They are safe now," the being replied. "I let them pass, where these things cannot touch them." Tears blurred his vision, or maybe it was just the light again. "Will you let me pass?" he asked. The being paused. Then softly, You would not make it. Not like them. The journey is long. They are strong. You are not ready. Then what? He whispered. I will send you back. His heart stuttered. Back? To life? The being nodded. Yes, wounded, alone, surrounded by the dead, but alive. He wanted to protest. He didn't want to wake in fire and blood. He didn't want to forget. I'll warn them, he said, desperate. I'll tell my people, don't come. Earth is not safe. You won't remember, the being said gently. And even if you did, they will still come. Earth is too beautiful not to be seen, and some of those who see it die. That is part of its beauty. It turned its blade, pointing the hilt at him. It will hurt, it warned. It will be terrifying. But it is what must happen. I'm afraid, he whispered. So were they, the being replied. It's time. With one sharp motion, it drove the hilt forward into his chest, and the world shattered. He woke to screaming, to flame, to smoke and pain, and the bodies of humans around him. The plane had crashed. He didn't know how he'd survived, but he had. Somehow, Hilt Talk lived.